Pastor Ezekiel was known for his marvelous miracles. It was barely 6 a.m., but the White Resurrection Fire Assembly was already full. A crowd of worshippers had filled the massive building. People had come from everywhere: Abuja, Lagos, Enugu, even as far as Ghana, all over the world. They raised their necks to catch sight of Prophet Ezekiel, popularly known as the Man of Grace. Some said he could look straight into a person's mind, revealing secrets no one could ever know. Others swore that he had the power to speak directly with God. But today, something unsettling hung in the air. Just then, a scream echoed from the side of the hall. A woman named Mama Chinyere rushed to the front, wide-eyed and shaking. "He did it again, Pastor. My son that was arrested has been released." The congregation erupted in cheers. But Mary, a quiet church girl who had attended for months, noticed something strange. She knew the woman only had one son, Chinyere, and the son had not been arrested. Doubt clawed at her heart. But who would believe her? Prophet Ezekiel, the man of grace, was powerful, untouchable. His congregation would fight you just to protect him. Before the miracles, before the crowd, before the shining white church with golden gates, he was just a poor man named Brother Ezekiel. He had no wife, no children, just him and his uncle. His parents died when he was only 15 years old. Ever since then, it had been him and his uncle. He didn't play with his Bible. He went to church every Sunday. He was the first to arrive at church and the last to leave. He attended every church activity regularly. He would gather children under the mango tree and teach them the word of Christ. It became a habit. Every day, the children would come saying, "Brother Ezekiel, tell us about Jesus stories." It started just like that. He moved from compound to compound, praying for the sick and quoting Bible verses. Sometimes, people would give him money, but he wouldn't accept it. "God doesn't take money for healing his own people," he would say. Sometimes, they would chase him away, but he never got angry. He would kneel and say, "God bless you. Heaven knows your name." Then, one day, something happened. He prayed for Mama Ejima, a widow who had been bedridden for months. And by the next morning, she stood up and walked to the village square by herself. Nobody could explain it. She used to crawl on her stomach. I saw it with my eyes. Even her children already lost hope. How can this man just lay hands once and the woman walks? From that day, Ezekiel became known as the Man of Grace. He began holding small evening fellowships under the mango tree. At first, it was just 7 plastic chairs. Then it became 20. Then people started bringing mats to sit on the ground. He would preach, sweat, lay hands, and sing worship songs with tears in his eyes. People loved him. He's so humble. He prays like Elijah in the Bible. He doesn't even collect offering unless you beg him yourself. But behind all the praise, Ezekiel still struggled until one night, something happened that changed his life forever. Ezekiel had just finished evangelism and was walking home. It was getting dark. Just before he reached the road to his house, he passed the old cemetery near the edge of the village. That was when he saw a man standing by the road. He didn't recognize him. He had never seen the man before. As he walked close to the man, he greeted, "Good evening, sir. May the Lord be with you." The person didn't respond. But the moment Ezekiel walked past, the man spoke. "I see your work. I see how dedicated you are in the house of God, but you will never make impact unless you're willing to sacrifice." Ezekiel was surprised by what the man had just said. "Excuse me, sir," Ezekiel said, clutching his Bible tightly to his chest. The man continued. He talked about a special meeting, one that would require a significant offering from him. At first, Brother Ezekiel hesitated, but the man promised him it would grant him influence, power, success, and take him places he wouldn't even dream of being. Ezekiel frowned. "I will never sell my soul to the devil," he replied. "Power is from God, and him alone I will serve." "Go and think about it, Ezekiel," the man said. "This is your chance to break through. How do you know my name? Ezekiel asked. But the man said nothing. He disappeared into the darkness. That night, Ezekiel could not sleep. He kept hearing the words, "This is your chance to break through." The next evening, Ezekiel returned from preaching and saw the same man waiting outside his house. "How long will you suffer like this?" the man asked. "Say yes, and your name will be known across the world. Your church will be the most famous in the universe." "In return for what?" Ezekiel asked. "Just a significant offering," the man replied. "What does that mean?" "Don't ask too many questions. Just take this envelope. Open it when you're ready." The man handed Ezekiel a red and brown envelope and left. That night, Ezekiel stared at the envelope. Then he heard a voice whisper in his ear, "Open it. This is your only chance." He did. Inside was a card. "Come to this location, 1 a.m. tonight." At exactly 1 a.m., he picked up his Bible and went to the location. The place was a bush path beside the old cemetery. Other pastors were already there. They stood in a circle, chanting. They poured blood around him and told him, "For this power to last, you must give up something valuable." He gave up his chance to ever marry. Then they said, "Your altar must be built opposite a graveyard." His heart pounded, but it was too late to turn back. When the ritual was over, a strange power settled around him like a dark cloak. He didn't understand it, but something had changed. After that night, Ezekiel's fortune began to rise quickly. He bought a large plot of land directly opposite the same old cemetery. Nobody questioned it. They were just happy to see him finally growing. Within weeks, a white church building rose from the ground. He called it Resurrection Fire Assembly. By the third Sunday, people from across the state were flooding the church. Miracles began to happen every week. The entire world had heard of Pastor Ezekiel, the man of grace. His church began filling up with members from every corner of Nigeria and beyond. His fame grew. People believed this was revival. They believed this was divine. Nobody knew what was really going on. But this was only the beginning. Unknown to his congregation, the man they worshipped as the man of grace was far more than just a deceitful prophet. Every full moon, after the church lights had gone off, after the prayers had ended, after the congregation had gone home, Pastor Ezekiel would disappear. He would leave his mansion quietly, without security. He would walk barefoot across the field behind the church and enter the cemetery. There, he would meet with other men of God who had also made the pact. They sat around open graves, their white garments removed, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They didn't pray. They didn't worship. They shared twisted wisdom, dark strategies, and skills to keep their congregation bound in deception. There, powers were bestowed upon him strength, vision, and the ability to see into the lives of his congregation. But there was a price for this power: his soul, his humanity, and most disturbingly, he would never marry. He would never have children. Back in his church, no one suspected a thing. To them, Pastor Ezekiel was a holy prophet. His congregation continued to grow. People came from all over the world, seeking miracles and deliverance. Those who sought his favor were willing to pay any price, from cash offerings to livestock. His church had become a relentless machine, devouring people's destinies and swallowing their hopes. Within months, he introduced something new. He called it the mirror of life. Every church member was told to collect one for a fee. "This mirror is blessed," he said. "Every morning, look into it, speak to it, let it reveal the hidden wounds in your spirit." His congregation cherished the mirrors, believing they were on a path to spiritual growth. People obeyed. They believed. They didn't know that the mirrors were not divine. They were tools. Tools connected to the same dark forces Ezekiel bowed to every full moon. Through the mirrors, He could spy on their lives, see their homes, hear their arguments, smell their fears. One Sunday morning, during service, Pastor Ezekiel paused midway through his sermon. He turned slowly and pointed to a young man sitting in the third row. You, Peter, stand up. The church fell silent. Yesterday, you argued with your father about money, didn't you? Peter's eyes widened. Yes, sir. The crowd gasped. How did he know that? God is truly with him. But the truth was, Ezekiel had already seen Peter's conversation through the mirror the night before. It wasn't prophecy. It was surveillance. But who would believe that? Mary, the quiet woman who had doubted Mama Chinyere's testimony, was still attending. She said nothing. She watched everything. She saw the fake testimonies, the paid actors, the recycled miracles. Then came the miracle oil and holy water. Simple bottles, ordinary labels, but sold at expensive prices. Ezekiel would wave his hand over them and declare, this oil will cure sickness, fix broken marriages, bring financial favor. One Sunday, Mary saw a struggling widow give her last savings just for a small bottle of oil. She clenched her fist. Her suspicion was no longer doubt. It had become fire. One Sunday, Pastor Ezekiel pointed out a young woman from the middle row. Her name was Ojonugwa, a soft-spoken graduate from Kogi who came with her mother to receive a blessing. Ezekiel called her forward. The Lord has revealed something troubling to me, my daughter, he said. The crowd went quiet. I see that your life is in danger. If nothing is done, you will not live past your 30 seconds. Ojonugwa trembled. Her mother gasped. But the Lord has also shown me the solution. You must offer a powerful seed, a sacrifice that touches your heart. Ojonugwa's eyes widened. What kind of sacrifice, sir? Your mother must give a cow, he said. A strong one, pure, without blemish. Her mother panicked. We don't know where to get a cow from. We're new here. Ezekiel smiled. You don't need to look for one. Convert it into a seed. I will handle the rest. They believed him. Her mother wrote a large check. The church clapped. Your obedience has pleased the Lord, Ezekiel said. But what they didn't know was there was no cow, no altar, no sacrifice. The money went straight into Pastor Ezekiel's private estate fund. Mary watched from a distance. She saw the pattern and knew that these prophecies were nothing more than calculated lies to drain the congregation. She began to plan a way to expose Pastor Ezekiel's evil doings. Though she knew this task wouldn't be easy, she didn't give up. She prayed that her efforts wouldn't go in vain, that one day it would set people free and open their eyes. Despite her doubts, she still kept going to church. One Sunday morning, something happened. Something she could have ignored, but didn't. An elderly blind man was brought to the altar. Pastor Ezekiel laid his hand on the man's forehead and murmured a prayer. Suddenly, the man shouted, I can see now. The Lord has done it. The crowd exploded. People fell to the floor crying. Some threw money. Others danced in circles. But Mary sat still. She had seen that same man just 2 days earlier bargaining over wristwatches in Woos Market. The man wasn't blind. It was all a lie. Over time, Pastor Ezekiel became one of the richest pastors in Nigeria. He bought a mansion on the outskirts of the city. It was decorated with gold-plated furniture, imported chandeliers, marble floors, and a swimming pool shaped like a cross. He had personal chefs. He now traveled first class, wore suits from London, shoes from Italy, and watches worth more than a duplex. But behind the scenes, Ezekiel wasn't just deceiving people. He was also controlling lives. He broke families, destroyed marriages, manipulated vulnerable women who came to him for help. One evening during a midweek service, Pastor Ezekiel called out a wealthy businessman named Mr. Madu, Brother Madu, he said, raising his voice, the Lord is showing me a troubling vision. What is it, Daddy? The man asked. There is a dark cloud around your household. Someone very close to you is working against your destiny. Who, sir? Please tell me. Pastor Ezekiel leaned closer. It's your mother. Her spirit is blocking your breakthrough. The envy in her heart is contaminating your anointing. Gasps filled the room. Mr. Madu began to cry. Pastor Ezekiel placed a hand on his shoulder. Fear not. With my guidance, we would disconnect you from her spiritually. Within 2 weeks, Mr. Madu had cut ties with his aging mother. He started attending private prayer sessions at the pastor's mansion. There, Ezekiel convinced him to make seed offerings, promising to cleanse his bloodline. But all he was doing was bleeding him dry. Mary had enough. She couldn't stay silent anymore. She knew confronting Ezekiel in the open would be dangerous. So she made a plan. She decided to follow him, to see where he went, to find out what happened after midnight. It was a full moon. Mary hid behind the bushes near the back of the church. She clutched her phone tightly, heart racing. The cemetery was silent. Then she saw him, Pastor Ezekiel, alone, wearing a long black robe. He moved like someone floating. His footsteps made no sound. He walked to a particular grave and began to chant, not in English, not in tongues. Mary hid behind the bushes near the back of the church. She clutched her phone tightly, heart racing. The cemetery was silent. Then she saw him, Pastor Ezekiel, alone, wearing a long black robe. He moved like someone floating. His footsteps made no sound. He walked to a particular grave and began to chant, not in English, not in tongues. A strange language, dark, ancient, terrifying. Mary tried to stay still. Then something happened that made her cover her mouth to keep from screaming. The grave opened. Ezekiel didn't panic. He calmly stepped into the grave as if entering a room. And then the grave closed back. Mary nearly fainted. She had seen the truth with her own eyes. Pastor Ezekiel wasn't just a fraud. He wasn't human anymore. Mary didn't sleep that night. She tossed. She turned. The image of Pastor Ezekiel entering a grave and it closing over him wouldn't leave her mind. She didn't know what he was, but she knew he wasn't of God. Still, she kept attending church. She smiled. She clapped. She danced. But she was watching. And she was planning. She had video clips, photos, recordings. She just needed the right moment to expose him. That Sunday, during service, Pastor Ezekiel suddenly went quiet. He stared into the crowd. Then he pointed at Mary. Come forward, daughter of Zion. Mary froze. Her heart pounded, but she stood up. She walked to the altar slowly. Ezekiel placed one hand on her shoulder. The Lord has shown me that you carry a heavy burden, he said. Come, let the grace of God lift it from you. The crowd clapped. Mary kept her eyes down. Then he leaned in and whispered, You are walking on dangerous ground, my child. Some secrets are better left alone. Mary swallowed hard, but she didn't back down. She walked back to her seat and decided, I will finish what I started. That night, Mary locked her door, removed her SIM card, and fell to the floor in tears. She knew the danger. She knew Ezekiel now knew her mission. She had proof. She had fear. But now, she had a mission. She couldn't just post it on Facebook or confront him directly. This was no ordinary man. This was a man who walked with the dead, who entered graves alive, who whispered your name through spirits. So Mary made a plan. She created a fake account, used a VPN and a foreign number, and one by one, she dropped it. The clip of Pastor Ezekiel entering the grave, the voice notes of his assistant discussing stage miracles, the fake testimonies. She didn't post everything at once. She dropped them like breadcrumbs, and the word followed. By the third day, blogs were reposting it. YouTubers were analyzing every clip. Some said it was edited, some called it blasphemy. But those who had attended the church, they knew. Old members began to talk. Ex-workers began to confess. Even junior pastors posted anonymously. I worked there. Everything was fake. The man is dangerous. That mirror in the church, it wasn't for prayer, it was for watching us. Hashtags began to trend. Hashtags grave pastor. Hashtags fire from the cemetery. Hashtags not all that glitters is grace. Hashtags exposing Pastor Ezekiel. What happened to Pastor Ezekiel? He disappeared. Some said he ran away to a different country. Some said he died. Some said the grave swallowed him for good. No one really knows. But the church, locked, condemned, and now surrounded by silence and weeds. Just because someone says God told me doesn't mean he did. Just because someone calls themselves a prophet doesn't mean they are one. Ask questions. Use your eyes. Don't give your mind to miracles. Give your soul to truth. But let me also say this. Just because this pastor was not real doesn't mean all men of God are fake. There are still genuine, humble, anointed servants of God out there. Men and women who serve with truth, sacrifice, and love, without manipulation and without asking for your soul. May God help us all. Amen.